Hi everyone. So, surprise, I'm here with Pam, funnily enough, in her sitting room. And we've just been getting to know each other. I mean, we already know each other a bit, but I thought I'd drive over here and have a chat and just we had a lovely lunch and we went for a walk in the woods and we've been talking. And as you can imagine, we've been contemplating and going very deep into lots of subjects. And so if you see me looking over there, I'm looking at Pam over there rather than on my screen. I'll try and do a bit of both. Um, but we've been talking mostly about the year 2026 and the year 2027. And partly this is my framing because I wanted to invite Pam to make some commentary on particularly on next year, 2026, which I've coined a term for it, the year of the closing door. And we'll kind of get into what we mean by that. But it's going to be, I think, a very powerful year for many of us and for the planet, and feels like a ramp into the year 2027. And so it feels like we need to understand these energies really well as best as we can so that we can be prepared for them. And so that's really why we're here. And also because I was explaining to Pam how I'm in these next 2 years, I'm being something of a guinea pig in a way, because I'm changing my life around, partly because of that's the phase of life I'm in, because I'm in my second Saturn return. But I'm also moving my life and my whole business and everything in the direction of where this energy is shifting for the planet. And I'm hoping that if I describe some of that here, that it can be of inspiration and use, because then I'm a bit of a guinea pig, because I've been thinking about this for a long time. And in my world of the gene keys, 2027 is a key pivotal year. And if you know human design, you'll also know that. And if you don't know gene keys or human design, you'll hear Pam's also, you may have already heard your version, Pam, of why 2026 and 27 are like pivotal years for our planet. So shall I pause there and let you kind of say
Yeah,
something?
sure. Yeah, it's been wonderful to spend some time with Richard. Luckily, the weather was very kind to us. The woods were beautiful with all the autumn colours. It's been really glorious. And going back to late 2024, when I spotted this particular unique astrological configuration, which I've talked about a great deal, and I started to talk about metamorphosis being very much led by Sedna's symbolism in her particular geometry to Pluto and her mirror right now. I was thrilled because the first person I came across who was saying something similar was Richard, with his most famous gene key of the dragonfly and metamorphosis from the water nymph. And in his beautiful work of the gene keys, particularly gene key 55, that of freedom, that of the dragonfly, he was seeing the same time span as I was seeing. So that was my first excitement. Somebody else is using the same language and looking at the same time frame. And since then, other people have plugged in from their whatever their modality is, or their channeling, whatever, to this very unique period in time, 2027, 2025, 2026, 2027. And then that unique configuration that I've been talking about starts to break up. Saturn's already moved on, Uranus moves faster than Neptune and Pluto, and this mini triangle, as we've called it, starts to break up. So these seem to be the critical years of accelerated evolution, concentrated, accelerated evolution. And of course, our evolution goes on forever, and our evolution isn't determined by calendar years. But nevertheless, these 3 years have different qualities, certainly as I'm looking at it astrologically. Um, and so we had to get together and dig deeper into 2026, because we're coming to the end of 2025. And my goodness, this has been a fast moving year, but it's going to be even faster next year. We are really starting to see the ending of the old world, things collapsing, and that's going to continue and accelerate through 2026 as well. So that's just really seems doing a little bit of setup from my point of
Mm.
view, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. And so the using the gene keys, which is using similar mapping to the human design system, as I said, if you know that system. One of the ways that the founder of human design, Ra, looked at global cycles, and he created a really interesting way of mapping those global cycles, and it sort of maps this huge grand cycle that we talk about, the precession of the equinox and these yugas that also we could get into later. But it's essentially it's a way of looking right back 16,000 BC. That particular round begins, and it's coming towards its sort of finale now. And with the year 2027 is a pivotal point because it's a shifting of one of these major, what Ra called cogs and gears. And what's so interesting about that is that when they shift, it's quite an instantaneous event, right? So even though in human history we see it gradually, it means that when the gear shifts to another archetype, or in this case, another gene key, so it shifts into gene key 55, which is the key of freedom itself, then the old energy is literally not receiving any fuel anymore. So, because all the fuel is going into the new flowers, the new buds that are kind of then coming out. So that's why I've coined 2026 year of the closing door, because it's the very last blast of that old energy. By the time it gets to 2027 and early 2027, it's actually all dried up. So all the nutrition for the, if you like, for the old paradigm is drying up in this next year, whilst the new shoots are appearing at the same time. And Ra called this the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which is a delightful mythic name, because the phoenix obviously rises up out of the ashes of the old. And so 2026 is the last chance, in a way, of the old energy to kind of have any say in anything. And so that has a lot of bearing for us as individuals, because it means that if we've got any unprocessed stuff lying around, then 2026 is an amazing year to kind of get it dealt with, anything. So what I've decided to do in my life and through the Gene Keys is run a year-long series of retreats that, in what I call the Golden Path program, which is a program using the Gene Keys that's designed to throw out all the shadows inside us, transmute them into gifts. And it's a deep process. And I was sharing with Pam earlier, because she was saying, wow, that's quite a thing to commit to. And I said, yeah, it certainly is. It's kind of wild. But I was saying that I remembered a friend of mine who had gone on a Tibetan Buddhist retreat. This was some time ago. And she'd done one of those 3-year sealed retreats. You go in for 3 years, the doors are sealed behind you. You're in there with the lamas and you're doing these practices. And then you come out 3 years later. And I remember her going in, and I was one of the first people she met when she came out. And I remember her eyes when she came out. She was on fire. Every part of her body, she just changed. She was a completely different person. She was absolutely on fire, lit up from the inside out. And you could tell that her whole destiny had been reconfigured. And I thought about that a lot. And I thought, that's actually the level of commitment that this year, 2026, is asking for in us. That's why I created this big journey, so that people who feel they're ready can make that massive commitment to their own inner transmutation process. Now, you don't have to do mine, but I want you to be inspired, I hope, so that you can figure out, well, what's my version of that I need to do? Because when you get to 2027, you want to be able to look back and go, wow, 2026 was one hell of a year. That was a very difficult year for the planet, because I suspect it will be. And I think many of us do. And so you might be one of the people that says, well, I had a brilliant year. because at the beginning of the year, I made this massive commitment to my own inner process. And I now, I wasn't so fazed by everything that was going on out there. And I stayed true to this process and this program, because the door was closing. The door on that old energy and that old paradigm was closing. And I sucked out every part of my own shadow process while it was closing. And now I'm ready for the new when I hit 2027. We don't know what that new energy will look like. We just know that that's when the kind of all the energy starts pouring into the new shoots, into the new consciousness. And the old will then, the old ways, the old paradigms, the old patriarchal systems, will then start to decline much more quickly, because there's no juice left. There's no inner juice left in the programming. So that could be quite frightening, for the mass consciousness, because you start to lose the things that you've taken for granted for a long time. They start to kind of not always be there, and that might be a process that lasts, decades even. So the decline is going to speed up, but at the same time, so's the awakening. So that's why I'm pointing 2026 as a really important year, that you get clear in yourself. What is the commitment that I need to make? And how can I be really decisive right from the beginning and set your trajectory clear from your heart, from your body, so that you have an amazing year. And also that's going to be part of that journey is going to be us supporting each other, whatever does happen on the outside, and coming together in intimacy and in community to support each other, so that we remind each other we need not be freaked out by whatever's going on outside. We can act. This is part of the closing of the door, and we need to stay focused on the mission that we made the commitment to right at the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's wonderful to hear you speak of this, Richard, because I've been talking about this in my own language of saying that anything that is not born of love is going to crack and crumble right now, because we're moving to this higher frequency of love, and all these very high frequency light codes that are coming in from our sun and the galactic core, etc. It is changing our biology, I believe. It's changed, and you've talked about this as well, with Pluto moving into Gate 41 on January the 30th this year, and how that was triggering, I think, methionine. Methionine, which is going to create a mutation across all species, a genetic mutation across all species, I remember you saying. So we're changing biologically, we're changing in consciousness, I think, very rapidly. And so, yes, anything of low frequency is going to crumble, and the crumbling is going to accelerate from this point on. And so we're no longer in rehearsal. That was the few months in the summer, Northern Hemisphere, winter in the Southern Hemisphere. That was our rehearsal. We're now in the stage of metamorphosis, this quiet wintertime, Northern Hemisphere. But from early next year, and I can quote specific dates, it's gonna be go time. And so this is the time to choose, to decide, to set your vision. Don't just hope. Hope is a wobble. But as Richard said, absolutely commit to the vision of the higher self that you want to become. Because there's no more rehearsal time now. We're in it. And it's going to move very fast. The energy next year is going to be even faster than this year, and 2027 even faster again. It's not slowing down anytime soon. So this is the time. There's no more wobble time. This is the time to commit. So get very clear. If you meditate on who is the best self I can be, who is my highest self, what steps can I take to make that dream become real? Because the symbolism astrologically, as of the 20th of February next year, is about making real the dream and taking action on it, taking action steps from that point on. So we're absolutely in this crucible of change. And it's so interesting that Richard, from his different discipline and modality, is seeing exactly what I'm seeing astrologically. So yes, the old will continue to crumble, but please don't give it any attention. Just let it go. Just don't energize the old life support system, because that isn't going to, because what people tend to do is get caught up in the drama, pour energy into what they absolutely don't want, and then blame it for giving them a hard time. We are actually in a vicious circle with that. So really commit to the best you can possibly be. And I think that's thrilling. I think, as I understand it, this lifetime is the only lifetime where we're going to move from a kind of regular 3D being to being able to achieve much higher dimensions within this one lifetime. But we have to commit to it. And this is our kind of one-time shot at it, as it were. So it's very exciting, it's very exhilarating, but it's going to take the mastery of our thinking, the mastery of our state of being. And I would also add that have a positive lens, have a very positive lens on how you expect this to go. This is going to be great. It's going to be fabulous. Think of that mantra that Cynthia Sue Larson was telling us about, which is, how good can it get? Make that your rolling mantra day to day. How good can it get? And whether it's a challenging thing or a wonderful thing, how good can it get? Because that's going to shift up your frequency every time you roll that around your head. So, yeah, that's what I'd say from my point of view. Yeah,
totally. And in my community, in the Gene Keys, we're going to be focusing, a lot of our energy on those higher frequencies, on this, we call them the cities. They get the gifts and the city. The cities are like, if you get your Gene Keys profile, if you haven't already done that, you can look in it from genekeys.com and you can see your city. So you can see like the words that represent your heightened states of consciousness. And you can also see the shadows, right? So that's what you're going to throw out in 2026. That's what you're going to, you're going to transmute rather than throw out. But you're going to let them go, and you're going to watch those patterns, and you're going to see that there's an incredible opportunity for alchemy to take place. And it'll be easier than it ever has been before, because you're in harmony with the cosmic divine currents that are moving through all of us. So you're going to find it easier to let go of these shadow patterns, and you're going to find it easier, to be less provoked by whatever it is, the news headlines or the left or the right or the whatever it is that really provokes you sometimes and winds you up, because we're human. You'll find it easier to let go of that, because on the inside, you'll be giving your energy to a heightened state of consciousness, whatever your cities are. So we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention on our Buddha nature. And we're doing a real focus on embodiment, on embodying heightened states of consciousness in the body, right? Because that's in the biology, feeling them in the body, so that it's not just a head in the clouds idea. It's actually something, so if we use a word like ecstasy, or we use a word like rapture, or these are some of the names of the city, or celebration, we're actually embodying those principles in our lives. And so that's why you're right, Pam, it can be an amazing year when we start to embody those principles, but not at the expense of like bypassing the shadows. That's part of the journey, right? So it's a very juicy year in terms of us needing to ground higher frequencies down into the form, into the body. And that means we're going to need a kind of discipline that I would say in 2026, an inner discipline to stay with the process that you've chosen, that you've decided, or the relationship. One of the things I was sharing with Pam is looking at the year ahead. There's quite a focus on partnership, on divine. There's a line in the Gene Keys from my new book, which is not out yet, by the way. It's called Divine Monogamy. And it doesn't mean you have to be monogamous, but it means that you don't let energy slip away from you out of your relationships, out of your friendships, out of your partnerships, anywhere that you have a partnership with anything, is that if you're not 100% in that, then your energy is leaking somewhere in your life. And you either got to address it powerfully and quickly, or you need to let it go. What you don't want is a halfway house. So you've got to be really decisive and clear in your heart about what's good for you and what's right for you, because you don't want entropy. You don't want things, because if you have entropy in your relationships, you have entropy in your finances, in your health, and in your body, everywhere. It shows up everywhere. So relationships become a really important part of the focus for next year.